Hi everyone, I'm Lei, and if you were here for this segment last year, you've seen my video that summarizes ROBOTRIO, my original passion project partially inspired by Bionicle. In this video, we're going to dive into the history of robots, starting at the turn of the 20th century and going roughly up to the, quote, present day, which in this universe is the year 2011. Let's get started. This universe is an alternate timeline known as the TechnoSapient universe. The dedicated study of practical robotics began with the son of Thomas Edison, Edison II. In our home timeline, Edison II was merely known as Edison Jr., who died childless. He was also notorious for selling snake oil products, using his father's name to give him credibility. However, in the TechnoSapient universe, Edison II focused on the development of robotics, or automata as they were known at the time. His younger stepsister Madeline was in college at the time studying psychology, and would frequently report her findings to her brother via letter. Edison, frequently forgetting to message back, would reference her letters as notes in the development of what he called the automated neurotic engine, which would later be known as the cranial processor or brain of robots today. Madeline's original work would be swept under the historical rug for decades to come. Edison's research coincided with the invention of the assembly line, which was developed by Henry Ford in 1913. The two figures met at the 1915 Panama Pacific International Exposition, a World's Fair held in San Francisco. Ford and Edison exchanged schematics, and the two proposed a competition to realize self-moving or living automata. A secret third party eavesdropped on the two during the same fair, Roy J. Wensley, who worked for the Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company. Soon, there were three major companies in a race to develop sapient robots: General Electric, led by Edison, Ford Manufacturing, and Westinghouse, which for the most part kept its operations under wraps. In 1927, Wensley would invent the Televox, an automatic sub-switch system that served as the prototype for a robotic vocal processor. Almost a decade later, with the combination of Edison's brain design, Ford's motor schematics, and Wensley's voice box, Electro was built in December of 1936. Electro began seemingly the same as the previous Westinghouse attempts. He responded to basic commands with the associated programmed movements or pre-recorded vocalizations. This changed on a chilling February morning the following year, 1937. Engineer Jack Weeks was in the throes of replacing Electro's oil when the robot asked, "Could you kindly prepare a cigarette for me? This temperature is extremely cold." Following the initial panic, the team at Westinghouse successfully conducted a conversation with Electro, confirming that he was indeed sapient. The team submitted him to the 1939 New York World's Fair, telling the world that Westinghouse had won the US robot race. Danish journalist and art critic Edvard Smith described his experience.
The Westinghouse company has clearly demonstrated its technological improvement since the previous fair, with its showcase of Electro, the Motorman. Although this automaton is slow and often refers to his guests with crude terms of affection, he accepts audience questions with an eagerness that reflects more than pre-rehearsed answers.
Although Electro's World Fair debut was a resounding success, he gave the impression that robots were intended purely for entertainment over practicality, a trait that wouldn't be useful for the event overshadowing the fair known as World War II. During the war, further robotic development was set on the back burner to make room for weapons production. Because the latter required vast amounts of metal, anyone researching robotics at home could only document their theories and designs on paper, unable to test these theories in practice until after 1945. While the now obsolete Electro could technically move, he was incredibly slow and needed a great deal of assistance to avoid falling over. The first instance of what we consider a mobile robot would be Shaky, a non-humanoid built by the Stanford Research Institute in 1966. The oldest humanoid mobile robot is Velvet, built in 1973 by the Japanese company Rikai Factory. She is only active intermittently as she is considered a living historical artifact. Until 1975, the basis for a sapient robot's brain was a trade secret, albeit kept rather sloppily. MIT professor and researcher Mike Signiak was friends with the son of Jack Weeks, the Westinghouse engineer who had witnessed Electro's sapient awakening. Signiak believed that sapient technology should not be monopolized, and controversially published the original patent for the cranial processor made by Westinghouse. Signiak's publication had initiated the rise of independently created robots with a singular creator rather than a corporation or strictly controlled research team. These sapient robots helped ease the perception of their sapience into the public eye. Within 5 years, the number of registered sapient robots quadrupled worldwide, growing almost exponentially until 1983, when a sapient robot caused the death of a human. This caused public outrage and legal limitations on robot rights were put into place. Prominent robotics companies based in the United States include Apple, Boston Dynamics, Cyclone, Hercules Engineering, and NASA. While independent creators tend to build robots for the goal of creating a robot, The corporate mind is significantly more competitive, always looking for new innovations. And, as was the pattern at the very beginning, many companies keep their ideas close to the chest, remaining secretive until their concept is fully realized. I think we've covered the main points on how robotics in the United States came to be what it is today. There are, of course, many different country stories that are less America-centric, but I'll leave that for a later time. I hope you enjoyed this video on the history of the TechnoSapient universe.